All of us around here are really excited about meeting this young man because we haven't. It's a rare appearance. He's flown in from England to appear. He goes on to New York to do some promotion. He is probably one of the greatest of the composers of the modern stage, whose international hits, of course, are Jesus Christ Superstar and Evita. Right now, I want the chance to sit down and talk with this brilliant young composer, Andrew Lloyd Webber. Andrew? Well, we know all of our American composers are Stephen Sondheim's and all the rest of them, but we really don't know you that well except your wonderful music.
Well, that's because I'm not here. I live in London, very firmly in England.
But you never come over and check the tours of the companies?
I was over here in Los Angeles for the opening of Evita here.
Right.
And actually, I was here for about 3 months. And this time I shall be, looking at the show very definitely. I didn't catch this production because it opened so quickly after the New York one.
Right.
But I like to take a very keen interest in the actual standard of the productions. It's vital.
Right, right. The story of Evita and how it came about is a fascinating one. Let me tell you what I know about it, and you say right or wrong. Evita was started as an album being made in a studio. It was not for a show.
No, it was actually
something you had written.
It was written for the theatre, but we recorded it first. Because, you see, luckily, as it's all music, it actually works very well on record.
Right.
And therefore, I think it's a bit different from an ordinary musical where perhaps there are lots of numbers and then there's dialogue as well.
Right.
But you can put the whole thing on record and it makes sense.
What fascinated you about Evita Peron?
Well, it's a very interesting story. It's such an extraordinary way that a woman could have come up in a country which is a very male-dominated country like Argentina, then rise to the very top of it, and at the same time manipulate a country that was actually a very civilized place. It's not a sort of tin pot banana state. It's a story, really. We always regarded it as a cautionary tale, a tale that could happen anywhere.
Right.
And it fascinated me.
But do we treat her differently in our productions here in America of Evita than the English, than you would treat her in London?
Our production perhaps is a little more, I guess, ambivalent, like with the word politically. We don't go out on a limb and say this lady is absolutely evil. I believe she was. I think we start from the point of view that we know she is, so we don't actually have to say so.
Right.
I think here it's a little more forceful, but then everything about the theatre here, particularly in musicals, is just that little bit harder, and the edges a little harder. And actually, I personally prefer the production here in many ways. I think that we got a lot of things right here that we, first off in London, probably didn't get quite right.
Okay. Now, here in America, the show seems relatively new to us. We only know of Evita as a hit musical on Broadway for a little more than a year, although it toured here, and yet the property is 4 or 5 years old.
It was written, yes, in 1975, and it came out on record here at the beginning of 1976.
Right.
To a reaction of total indifference.
They just didn't care about it.
No, I mean, there was no real interest at all until the stage show came on last year.
Did Olivia Newton-John's recording of Don't Cry for Me, Argentina have any influence on the popularity here in America?
Well, not really, because you see,
She did a very nice
it's a
record.
lovely version, but Don't Cry for Me, Argentina is 6 minutes long, you see,
Right.
and apparently that's too long for American radio.
Right, we've got to get 7 commercials in there. Yeah.
Exactly, I think Gone with the Wind.
So it came out as an album in England, and then Robert Stigwood turned it into a production?
Well, the album came out in England, and actually the guiding force behind it was Harold Prince, who we're very fortunate directed the production for us.
He's wonderful.
I mean, I think the greatest director really in musical theatre, that I've ever had the chance to work with.
Right.
And it was his sort of force that turned it into the stage show in London, and from there, the stage show opened in London in 1978, and was running in London for very nearly a year before it came here.
Right. Tell us about Jesus Christ Superstar. You're certainly right about heavyweights, I'll tell you that.
Up till now.
You went right to the top with that one. I can recall, we were doing the show in New York at that time, and I can recall when that was recorded in England, and I don't believe it was allowed to be played in America for quite a while because it was so controversial. The radio stations, we heard the record almost underground in the offices, this Jesus Christ Superstar.
Yes.
We never heard it done that way, you know.
Well, actually, Superstar was a strange saga, really, because it was offered to everybody as a stage show, and they all turned it down and said, no way would we touch this. And then a record company in London said, well, just record it, and we'll see what happened. And kind of by accident, it then got to the theatre. But it's very different to Evita, because Evita was actually written primarily for the theatre, but Superstar was written for records.
It was written for records.
But for that reason, because nobody would touch it. People said, you're joking, there's no way we can get a show about Christ on the stage. And, you know, it was one of those things. I mean, people were proved wrong, but it had to go via records first.